The email hit my inbox at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Subject line: Team update, leadership changes. I knew before opening it. My stomach dropped like a stone. We're excited to announce that Jessica will be taking over as Regional Operations Manager, effective immediately. Her collaborative spirit and team-focused approach make her perfect for this role. I read it twice. Then the third time. The promotion I'd been promised for 8 months. The position I'd been doing half the work for already. Gone. To someone who'd been here 6 months. My phone buzzed. A text from my boss: Trevor, can we chat? My office at 10. I looked around the open floor. Jessica was already getting congratulations. Handshakes, hugs, that fake corporate celebration. She caught my eye and smiled. That sweet, innocent smile that fooled everyone. Everyone except me. Because I knew something they didn't. Something that would make this the biggest mistake Trevor ever made. 8 years. 8 years I'd been the person they called when systems crashed. 8 years of staying late to fix problems nobody else understood. 8 years of building everything they took for granted. And now they thought they could just replace me with someone who brought cookies to meetings. I saved my work, closed my laptop, and walked toward his office. My hands were steady. My breathing was calm. They had no idea what was coming. Trevor's office smelled like stale coffee and desperation. He gestured to the chair across from his messy desk. His tie was loose. His shirt wrinkled. Papers scattered everywhere like his thoughts. Look, Keller, I know this is tough, he started. But Jessica brings something different to the table. Different how? I kept my voice level. She's more approachable. The team responds well to her energy. He shuffled papers nervously. You're brilliant, don't get me wrong. But leadership isn't just about being smart. I nodded slowly. So being smart isn't enough? It's about people skills. Making others feel comfortable. Jessica has that natural warmth. Natural warmth. Right. The same warmth that got her promoted over 3 other qualified candidates. The same warmth that meant she never had to work late, never had to fix the broken systems, never had to clean up anyone else's mess. I watched him squirm in his chair. Trevor was uncomfortable because he knew this conversation made no sense. He knew I was more qualified, but he'd made his choice based on who made him feel good about himself during meetings. I understand, I said. Trevor looked relieved. I knew you'd be professional about this. Professional? Sure. I was about to show him exactly how professional I could be. I walked back to my desk with a plan forming. 8 years at Westfield Analytics. 8 years of building, fixing, improving. 8 years of being the person everyone called when things broke down. Jessica was still receiving congratulations. She was glowing, soaking it all in. When she saw me, she walked over with that practiced confidence. Keller, I hope there's no hard feelings, she said sweetly. I know you wanted this position. Congratulations, I replied. You deserve it. Her smile widened. She had no idea what those words really meant. Because deserve is exactly what she was about to get. I opened my laptop and started making a list. Not a hit list. A systems list. Every program, every process, every automated workflow that kept this place running. The stuff nobody noticed when it worked perfectly. The stuff that would make headlines when it stopped. The inventory system that tracked our million-dollar warehouse operations. The client database that managed relationships with 200-plus companies. The automated reporting system that generated weekly summaries for the board of directors. All of it running on code I'd written. Systems I'd designed. Processes I'd built from nothing. My phone buzzed with a calendar invite. Operations transition meeting, tomorrow 9 a.m. Perfect timing. Jessica would get her first real taste of what operations actually meant. That night, I stayed late. The office was empty except for the cleaning crew and me. I worked by the glow of my monitor, documenting everything. The building was quiet, peaceful. It gave me time to think clearly about what I was really dealing with. The inventory tracking system I built from scratch? Mine. The client database that automatically generated reports? Mine. The workflow automation that saved the company 40 hours of manual work each week? Also mine. None of it was officially documented as my intellectual property. But that was about to change. I pulled out my personal laptop and started copying files. Not stealing. These were programs I'd written on my own time, using my own ideas. I'd been too trusting, too generous. I'd given them everything without keeping the originals. Rookie mistake, but not one I'd make twice. The more I documented, the clearer it became. Westfield Analytics wasn't just using my systems. They were completely dependent on them. Without these programs, their operations would grind to a halt within days. And Jessica, with all her natural warmth and collaborative spirit, had absolutely no idea how any of it worked. By midnight, I had everything backed up. Every line of code, every database structure, every workflow diagram, all safely stored on my personal drives with timestamps proving I was the creator. Tomorrow's meeting will be interesting. Jessica was about to get a crash course in what she'd actually signed up for. The transition meeting was exactly what I expected. Jessica sat at the head of the conference table like she belonged there. Trevor looked proud of his decision. The other department heads nodded along with everything she said. My first priority is building stronger team connections, Jessica announced. I want everyone to feel heard and valued. Murmurs of approval around the table. Classic corporate speak that sounded good but meant nothing. What about the current systems? Asked Paula from HR. Keller has been managing most of our operational workflows. Jessica turned to me with that practiced smile. Keller will handle the handover. I'm sure it'll be seamless. I could see she expected me to nod along, maybe offer some supportive words about working together. Instead, I smiled back. Actually, I need to discuss something important. The room went quiet. Trevor raised an eyebrow. Jessica's smile flickered slightly. I've reviewed all the systems I've been managing, and there's a problem, I continued. Most of them were developed using my personal intellectual property. I need to clarify the legal ownership before any handover. Jessica's smile died completely. What do you mean? I mean the programs keeping this place running aren't technically company property. They're mine. You could hear a pin drop. The department heads looked confused. Trevor's face was shifting through several emotions at once. Jessica looked like someone had just told her there was no Santa Claus. The silence in the room was beautiful. Trevor's face went from confused to concerned to angry in about 10 seconds. Jessica looked like someone had just pulled the chair out from under her. That's ridiculous, Keller. Everything you built here belongs to the company. I pulled out a folder I'd prepared that morning. Actually, according to my employment contract, intellectual property developed outside of assigned duties remains with the creator. I never signed a comprehensive IP transfer agreement. Paula leaned forward, suddenly very interested. Are you saying you own the inventory system? And the client database? And the automated reporting tools? And about 6 other programs that process roughly 80% of our daily operations. I kept my voice calm and professional. Jessica looked panicked. But those systems are essential. You can't just take them. I'm not taking anything. I'm clarifying ownership. There's a difference. Trevor was sweating now. I could see him doing quick mental math, trying to figure out what this meant for the company. What exactly are you suggesting, Keller? I'm suggesting we need to discuss licensing agreements. Fair compensation for the use of my intellectual property. I paused and looked directly at Jessica. Of course, as the new operations manager, Jessica will handle these negotiations. The look on her face was worth 8 years of thankless work. All that natural warmth had evaporated, replaced by pure terror. The meeting ended with Trevor promising to look into this legally. Jessica tried to corner me afterward, but I had somewhere to be. Gregory and Associates was a law firm downtown that specialized in intellectual property. I'd made an appointment that morning. Interesting case, said the lawyer, Catherine Gregory, after reviewing my documentation. You have clear proof of creation, timestamps, and your contract supports your position. So I actually own these systems? Based on what you've shown me, yes. The company has been using your intellectual property without proper licensing agreements. She leaned back in her chair. What outcome are you looking for? Fair compensation. And respect. Those two things often go together, she smiled. Let me draft a formal notification letter. We'll give them 48 hours to respond before we discuss next steps. Walking out of that office, I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time, I held the cards. And I was ready to play. The letter arrived at Westfield Analytics the next morning via certified mail. I watched from my desk as Trevor signed for it, his face going pale as he read. Within an hour, my phone was ringing. My office. Now. Trevor's voice was tight. This time, Jessica was already there when I arrived. Her natural warmth had been replaced by barely controlled panic. You can't be serious about this. Trevor started before I'd even sat down. Completely serious. My lawyer was very thorough. Jessica jumped in. This is sabotage, Keller. You're trying to hurt the company because you didn't get promoted. I looked at her calmly. I'm trying to get fair compensation for my work. Something you might understand if you'd actually created anything here. Her face flushed red. Trevor slammed his hand on the desk. We built this company together, Keller. You can't just pull the rug out from under us. I laughed. Trevor, when's the last time you actually looked at how the inventory system works? Or the client database? Or any of the programs keeping your operations running? Silence. That's what I thought. What do you want? Trevor asked finally. 3 options, I said, pulling out my notes. Option 1. We negotiate a fair licensing agreement. You pay me monthly fees for continued use of my systems. Market rate is about $50,000 per year per major system. Jessica gasped. That's ridiculous. Option 2. I continued. You purchase the intellectual property outright. Based on the value these systems provide, we're looking at around $300,000. Trevor was doing math in his head, his face getting redder. Option 3. I finished. I withdraw permission for continued use of my intellectual property, effective immediately. You rebuild everything from scratch using your new operations manager's expertise. The room was dead silent. Through the glass wall, I could see other employees going about their normal day, completely unaware that their jobs depended on the next few minutes. You have 24 hours to decide, I said, standing up. My lawyer will be in touch. As I reached the door, Jessica called out desperately. Keller, wait. We can work this out. I paused and looked back. You're right, Jessica. We can work this out. You're the operations manager now. So manage. Word spread fast in a small office. By lunch, everyone knew something big was happening. People kept glancing at me, whispering in corners. My desk phone rang constantly. Trevor called, then Jessica, then Paula from HR. I let them all go to voicemail. Instead, I spent the day documenting everything for my lawyer. Every system, every improvement, every late night I'd spent making their lives easier. The evidence was overwhelming. Around 3 p.m., Jessica appeared at my desk. Gone was the confident smile from yesterday's announcement. She looked exhausted. Can we please talk privately? I followed her to an empty conference room. Look, she said, closing the door. I know you're upset about the promotion, but this nuclear option isn't fair to the whole team. Nuclear option? I raised an eyebrow. I'm asking for fair compensation for my work. That's not nuclear. That's business. But people could lose their jobs if the systems shut down. Then maybe you should have thought about that before taking a position you're not qualified for. Her facade finally cracked. I am qualified. I have an MBA. From where? And in what? Because I don't remember operational systems management being covered in basic business school. That evening, I got a call from Catherine Gregory. They want to meet Trevor Oro, she said. All parties present, including their legal counsel. They're taking this seriously. Good. What's your read on the situation? They're scared. Really scared. Your documentation is solid, and they know they're in a weak position. She paused. But be prepared for them to get nasty. When people realize they're cornered, they don't always play nice. She was right. The next morning, I arrived at the conference room to find Trevor, Jessica, Paula, and 2 lawyers I didn't recognize. The tension was thick enough to cut. Keller, one of the lawyers began. I'm James Crawford from Henderson & Associates. We represent Westfield Analytics. We believe we can resolve this misunderstanding quickly. Misunderstanding. Right. There's no misunderstanding, Catherine replied smoothly. My client created valuable intellectual property that your company has been using without compensation. We're here to discuss fair licensing terms. Your client was an employee, Crawford shot back. Everything created during work hours belongs to the company. I smiled. Prove I created these systems during work hours. Crawford opened a file. We have your login records, Keller. You accessed company servers to build these programs. I accessed servers to implement programs I'd already designed at home. Big difference. I pulled out my own documentation. These are the original design documents, created on my personal computer, with timestamps showing development began months before implementation. Catherine added, my client was generous enough to implement his personal innovations to benefit the company. That doesn't transfer ownership. Jessica looked like she was going to be sick. Trevor tried a different approach. Keller, be reasonable. We gave you a job, training, resources. You gave me a salary in exchange for my time, not ownership of my ideas. I leaned forward. Tell me, Trevor, what exactly did you train me on? Because I remember teaching myself everything I know. Crawford whispered something to Trevor, who nodded grimly. We're prepared to offer a one-time payment of $25,000 for full ownership of all systems, Trevor announced. I almost laughed. $25,000? These systems save you over $200,000 a year in operational costs. Try again. The negotiation went on for 3 hours. Back and forth, offers and counteroffers. Finally, Catherine called for a break. They're desperate, she whispered to me in the hallway. Their operations would collapse without your systems. But they're trying to lowball you because they think you'll cave. I won't cave. I know. That's why we're going to win this. When we returned, Trevor looked defeated. Our final offer, $150,000 for complete ownership transfer, plus a $10,000 retention bonus if you stay for 6 months to train Jessica. I looked at Jessica, who was avoiding eye contact. Counteroffer, I said. $250,000 for ownership transfer. No retention bonus. I'll provide 2 weeks of transition documentation, then I'm gone. That's insane. Jessica exploded. The company can't afford that. I turned to her slowly. Jessica, yesterday you were excited about being operations manager. Managing operations includes managing costs. So manage. Trevor was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded to Crawford. We'll need board approval, Trevor said finally. Give us until Friday. It was Tuesday. 3 days to sweat. Those 3 days were the longest of my career. I came to work as normal, but everything felt different. People whispered. Meetings happened behind closed doors. Jessica avoided me completely. On Thursday, Paula from HR pulled me aside. Keller, I need to ask. Are you really going to shut down the systems if they don't pay? I'm not shutting down anything. I'm just clarifying who owns what. But practically speaking, if someone was using your car without permission, you'd want it back, right? She nodded reluctantly. Same principle. Just because they've been using my work doesn't give them ownership. That afternoon, I saw a moving truck outside the building. Through the window, I watched Jessica carrying boxes to her car. Word was she'd taken personal leave, effective immediately. Apparently, the stress of actually managing operations was too much for her natural warmth to handle. Friday morning, Catherine called. They accepted your terms. $250,000, clean transfer, 2 weeks transition. Can you be here at 2 p.m. to sign? I sat at my desk, looking around the office I'd called home for 8 years. Part of me felt sad, but a bigger part felt free. At 2 p.m., I walked into Henderson and Associates conference room for the last time as a Westfield employee. Trevor was there, looking older than his 50 years. No Jessica. Apparently she'd decided managing operations wasn't for her after all. The contracts were thick, page after page of legal language, but it all boiled down to one simple fact. They were paying me what my work was worth. Before we sign, Trevor said quietly, I need to ask, will you stay on as a consultant? We'll pay your rate. I looked at him for a long moment. Trevor, 2 weeks ago you told me I wasn't leadership material. Now you want me to lead your operations recovery. I made a mistake. Yes, you did. But mistakes have consequences. I signed the papers. My last 2 weeks at Westfield Analytics were surreal. Everyone knew what had happened, but nobody talked about it directly. I spent my time writing detailed documentation for whoever would replace me. Trevor brought in a consulting firm to assess the situation. Their conclusion was predictable. The company had been running on systems too complex for anyone else to understand. They recommended hiring a specialist team to rebuild everything from scratch. Cost estimate, $400,000 and 6 months of development time. Trevor's face when he got that report was priceless. Keller, he said, cornering me by the coffee machine. That consulting quote is insane. Are you sure you won't reconsider staying? At what position? Whatever you want. Name it. I sipped my coffee slowly. I want Jessica's job. The one you said I wasn't qualified for. Done. Operations manager, full authority, 30% raise. Plus a formal apology to the entire team for the way this was handled. His jaw tightened. That's asking a lot. Not as much as $400,000 and 6 months of chaos. Trevor called an all-hands meeting that Friday. My last day. The entire company gathered in the main conference room. All 47 employees. I need to address some recent organizational changes. Trevor began awkwardly. There have been some misunderstandings about roles and responsibilities. He was struggling with every word. Kellerchin has been integral to our operations for 8 years. His contributions were undervalued in recent decisions. We're offering him the operations manager position, with full authority and appropriate compensation. The room was dead silent. Everyone knew about Jessica's sudden departure. Additionally, Trevor continued, clearly hating every moment. I want to formally acknowledge that my recent leadership decisions didn't reflect our company values of merit and excellence. It wasn't quite the apology I'd asked for, but it was close enough. Keller, would you like to respond? I stood up slowly, looking around at faces I'd worked beside for almost a decade. Thank you, Trevor, but I'm declining the position. I've accepted a role elsewhere. The gasps were audible. The truth was, I'd been interviewing all week. Word spreads fast in our industry, and the story of someone successfully asserting intellectual property rights has gotten attention. TechFlow Solutions, Westfield's biggest competitor, had called Wednesday. We heard you're available, their CEO had said. We need someone who understands operational systems. Someone who's not afraid to build something from nothing. The offer was incredible. Senior systems architect, 50% more than my Westfield salary, equity options, and complete creative control over a new department. Plus, they were actively recruiting Westfield's clients, offering smoother operations and better systems integration. Systems integration I would design. It was perfect revenge, served ice cold. Walking out of Westfield for the last time, I felt like a weight had been lifted. In my car, I called Catherine Gregory. How does it feel to win? She asked. It feels like the beginning, I said. 6 months later, I was featured in Tech Innovation Weekly. The article was titled The $250,000 Lesson, Why Intellectual Property Matters in Modern Workplaces. My desk at TechFlow overlooked the city center, 3 floors above Westfield Analytics. Sometimes I'd see Trevor walking to lunch, looking stressed and tired. My new department had grown to 12 people. We'd landed 8 major clients, including 3 that had left Westfield after their operations became unreliable. How's the old place doing? My assistant, Maya, asked one day after seeing me look out the window. They're struggling, I said honestly. Took them 4 months to rebuild basic inventory tracking. They're still working on the client database. Do you feel bad about it? I thought about that question. I feel bad for the good people still working there, but I don't feel bad for holding Trevor accountable for his choices. That afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Keller? It's Jessica. I almost hung up. Please don't hang up, Jessica said quickly. I just wanted to apologize. I was silent for a moment. Apologize for what exactly? For not understanding what you'd built there. For thinking I could just step into your role without earning it. Her voice was shaky. I've been working at a smaller company for 3 months now, actually doing operational work, and I realize how much I didn't know. Where are you working? Mid-state manufacturing. I'm a junior operations assistant. Learning from the ground up this time. That surprised me. How do you like it? It's hard. It's really hard. But I'm actually learning instead of just managing. She paused. I heard about your success at TechFlow. Congratulations. Thank you. Keller, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know, I never meant to steal your work. I just didn't understand what work meant. After we hung up, I sat staring out the window for a long time. Success felt good, but vindication felt better. A year after leaving Westfield, I got an email that made me smile. It was from Kevin, one of the junior analysts who'd worked under me. Keller, you probably don't remember me, but I wanted to update you on what's happening here. Trevor was let go last month. The board finally realized the company had been hemorrhaging money since you left. Jessica actually came back as a consultant to help rebuild what they could, but she recommended they just license systems from TechFlow instead of rebuilding. He continued, the board voted to sell the company to Midstate Manufacturing. Everyone's keeping their jobs, but it's basically a complete restructure. I'm starting my MBA next fall. Figured I should actually understand business before trying to manage it. Thanks for showing us what real expertise looks like. I forwarded the email to Catherine Gregory with a note. Justice served, 1 year later. Her response was immediate. Sweet victory. How's the new book coming? Right. The book, Intellectual Property in the Digital Workplace, a guide for professionals, was due to my publisher in 6 months. The book launch was bigger than I expected. The conference room at Barnes & Noble downtown was packed. People from all over the industry came to hear about intellectual property rights and workplace equity. During the Q&A, a young woman asked, "What advice would you give to someone who's being overlooked at work?" "Document everything," I said. "Keep records of your innovations, your contributions, your ideas. And don't be afraid to value your own work appropriately." An older man raised his hand. "But isn't loyalty to your employer important?" "Loyalty is a two-way street. If your employer values loyalty more than competence and politics more than performance, you might be in the wrong place." After the event, someone approached me near the book signing table. I looked up to see Trevor. He looked terrible. Older, thinner, defeated. "Keller, congratulations on the book." "Trevor, I heard about Westfield." He nodded grimly. "Complete disaster. We never recovered from losing your systems. The board blamed me for everything. I'm sorry it worked out that way. Are you?" I considered the question honestly. "I'm sorry good people lost their jobs. I'm not sorry you learned that competence matters." Trevor shifted uncomfortably. I wanted to ask, "Would you consider consulting for my new company? I'm starting small, but I want to do things right this time." I studied his face. He seemed genuinely changed by the experience. "What kind of company?" "Small business operations consulting, helping companies value their technical talent appropriately." He almost smiled. "Turns out there's a market for that." Ironic career change. "Yeah, well, sometimes you learn lessons the hard way." He paused. "I learned mine. I'd like to make sure other managers don't make the same mistakes." I pulled out a business card. "Send me a proposal. I'll consider it." As he walked away, Maya appeared beside me. "Was that my old boss? The one who started this whole thing? Are you really going to work with him?" "Maybe. People can change. And if he's serious about valuing technical talent, he might actually help other people avoid what I went through." She shook her head. "You're more forgiving than I'd be." "I'm not forgiving. I'm just successful enough now that I can afford to be generous." 2 years after the whole situation began, I was invited to speak at the National Workplace Equity Conference. The keynote address, "When Merit Meets Politics, a Case Study in Professional Vindication." The audience was 2,000 professionals, mostly women and minorities who'd faced similar challenges in their careers. People who'd been told they were too focused on results or not leadership material. "The story I'm about to tell you," I began, "isn't about revenge. It's about value. Specifically, about knowing your value and insisting others recognize it too." I told the whole story. The promotion that wasn't. The systems that were. The negotiation, the payout, the vindication. When I finished, the standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Afterward, during the networking reception, a young engineer approached me. "Your story changed my perspective completely," she said. "I've been letting my company use my innovations without proper credit. I'm going to document everything and have a conversation with my manager." "Good," I said. "Just remember, you're not asking for charity. You're asking for what you earned." That night, alone in my hotel room, I reflected on how different my life had become. 2 successful books, a thriving consulting practice, and respect throughout the industry. All because I'd finally learned to value my own work appropriately. 5 years later, I received an invitation that completed the circle. Westfield Analytics, now a division of Midstate Manufacturing, was hosting an Innovation Award ceremony. They wanted to honor me as their inaugural recipient of the Technical Excellence Award. The irony was perfect. I accepted the invitation and flew back to the city where it all began. The ceremony was held in the same conference room where Trevor had once told me I wasn't leadership material. The current CEO of Midstate introduced me. Keller revolutionized operational thinking in our industry. His story reminds us that true innovation comes from recognizing and rewarding actual expertise, not just political skill. When I accepted the award, I looked out at the audience. Many faces I recognized from my old Westfield days. People who'd watched the whole drama unfold. People who'd learned that competence, documented and defended, always wins in the end. "This award represents more than recognition," I said. "It represents a shift in how we value technical contribution in professional environments. It proves that merit, properly defended, defeats politics every single time." Later, at the reception, Kevin approached me. He was wearing a suit now, and a name tag that read Operations Director. "Full circle," he said, grinning. "How do you like management? It's different when you actually understand what you're managing." He paused. Thanks for teaching us that lesson, even the hard way. Walking out of that building for the second time, I realized the story had finally reached its proper ending. Not with bitterness or anger, but with recognition, respect, and the satisfaction that comes from knowing your worth. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being right and proving it.